40 real estate test questions related to property ownership and land use. So if you're new to the channel, my name's Darren. My channel is dedicated to helping people just like you pass the real estate exam on their first try and helping people build wealth through real estate education. So this video is actually a compilation of 40 test questions. It's going to be broken out into 3 parts. The first part will have 10 test questions. The second part will have 20 test questions. And the last part will have 10 more test questions. So let's go ahead and dive into the first 10. Number 1, L owned 2 pieces of property. Congrats, L. And sold 1 parcel bordering the road to C, reserving in the deed an easement for ingress and egress to and from the remaining real property for themselves. After 5 years of non-use, L attempted to use the easement, but was prohibited from doing so by C. Maybe we should call C K for Karen. How would a court likely rule? A, the easement was forfeited due to non-use. B, the easement became void by statute. C, the easement expired under adverse possession. D, the easement was still valid since it had been created by deed. Correct answer here is D. The easement is valid since it had been created by a deed. Only an easement acquired by prescription may be lost through non-use. Question number 2. When an individual has an interest in land that continues for as long as they live, they have A, a fee simple estate, B, an easement, C, a life estate, D, a leasehold estate. Correct answer here is C, a life estate. Question number 3. A valid exercise of the government's police power to restrict an owner's use and enjoyment of property would include A, adverse possession, B, deed restrictions, C, building codes, D, easements. Correct answer here is C, building codes. So deed restrictions are private controls on property, while building codes are government controls of property. And so with this type of question, if you just know the definition, you're going to get it right. So make sure you study your definitions. Another reason to know the definitions and what all these words mean is sometimes you won't know what the question is asking if you don't know the definitions. Question number 4, a parcel of land described as southwest quarter, southeast quarter, and northwest quarter of section 13 sells for $500 per acre. What is the sale price? A, $40,000, B, $10,000, C, $5,000, D, $20,000. To answer this question, you need to know how many acres are in a section. And the answer to that is 640 acres are in a section. So if you divide that by 4 3 times, because you see southwest quarter, southeast quarter, and northwest quarter, you're going to get 10 acres. And then what you do is you just take that 10 acres and you multiply it by $500 to get your sale price of the correct answer, C, $5,000. Question number 5. One of the appurtenances to a parcel of land would be A, a deed restriction, B, a bill of sale, C, the bundle of rights, D, a personal property item. Correct answer here is C, the bundle of rights. And these are legal rights to owners of real property, including the right to a mortgage, sell, lease, improve, and enjoy the property. Now, these all run with the land and are appurtenant to it. So now that we're halfway through these questions, I want to share a question that I get a lot, and it is, where do I get these test questions? And I get these test questions from an education platform called Calibri. If you want to purchase your own set of test questions, you can use the link down below for Calibri. Full disclosure, it is an affiliate link. So if you decide to sign up for something, I do get a small portion of that sale. Why I recommend Calibri is because I personally use them to pass all 3 of my exams on the first try: my mortgage license, my real estate license, and most recently, my broker's license. So I would not recommend something I have personally used to pass all my exams on the first try. All right, let's get back to studying here. Question number 6, an investor buys 2 weeks of a timeshare in Miami. They are living their life. They're having a good time. What have they purchased? Probably a bad investment, but let's get into the answers. A cooperative interest. B, a general partnership. C, a leasehold estate. D, an interval ownership in real property. Correct answer here is D, an interval ownership in real property. Timeshares provide fee ownership in real estate for a certain period of time, such as 2 weeks a year. Question number 7. Adverse possession is an example of how title to land can be acquired by A, transfer, B, occupancy, C, easement, D, succession. Correct answer here is B, occupancy. So in California, there's 5 ways to acquire title to land: will, accession, succession, transfer, and occupancy. And occupancy would be the result of adverse possession. So if you just understand what the definition of adverse possession is, you will get this one correctly. Question number 8. The California real estate law defines a planned development as which of the following? A, a stock cooperative. B, a condominium project. C, a subdivision. D, a common interest community. Correct answer here is C, a subdivision. A planned development containing 5 or more lots is defined as a subdivision. And obviously this question is specific to California. So like I mentioned before, if you're in a different state and you're studying with me, you may want to purchase your state's specific exam prep. There's a link down below to it. Question number 9. Tom and Sally are not married, but they own a rental property together. Because they also have a right of survivorship, they most likely own the property in A, tenancy in common. B, community property. C, tenancy by the entireties. D, joint tenancy. As mentioned before, if you know definitions of key words and phrases and you see them pop up over and over again when you're studying, highly recommend to know what they mean, because that will be easy points for you on the test. Correct answer here is going to be joint tenancy. The only other answer here with a right of survivorship is tenancy by the entireties, but that does require the couple to be married and living in the home together. Question number 10. In the rectangular survey system, what are the lines running east and west called? A, meridians. B, monuments. C, range lines. D, baselines. Correct answer here is baselines. I highly recommend you know what baselines and meridians are. I actually did get a question like this on my broker exam. So I want to reward you because you've stayed to the end. You've went through all 10 questions with me. I'm going to give you a gift. It's a bonus question. Question number 11. Which of the following is considered real property? A, implements. B, light fixtures. C, tenants' trade fixtures. And D, area rugs. Correct answer here is light fixtures. So light fixtures are considered part of the home and thus part of the real property. So the other items noted here are not considered real property because they're easily movable. Now that we're done with those first 10, let's dive into the next 20 questions related to property ownership and land use. Number 1, which of the following is a lien and an encumbrance on property? A, an easement. B, a license. C, mortgage. D, deed restriction. Correct answer here is C, a mortgage. While all liens are encumbrances, encumbrances are not always liens. So deed restrictions, easements, and a license all encumber or burden a property, while a mortgage is the only burden that is also a financial lien. Question number 2. The airspace between the walls, floors, and ceiling areas of a condominium project is called A, a cooperative property. B, commingling. C, personal property. D, common area. Correct answer here is common area. Question number 3. When 2 or more parties own real property as co-owners with the right of survivorship, what is the tenancy called? A, tenancy in common. B, community property. C, joint tenancy. D, tenancy by the entireties. Correct answer here is C, joint tenancy. So when parties specify and preserve the unities of possession, interest, time, and title with the right of survivorship, that is known as a joint tenancy. I highly recommend you understand the different ways that people can hold title together. You will definitely get asked questions regarding this on the exam. And more importantly, when you start working in real estate, your clients, when they buy a property, will probably ask you about this subject. Now, you're technically not allowed to give legal advice, but it's probably wise to just send them the definitions and let them pick. Or you can always default and say, I'm not allowed to give legal advice, but here's what the definitions are, and here's how most people do this in your scenario. Question number 4. Senior Sally wishes to guarantee that her grandchildren end up with her home and farm after her son dies. What a great lady, Sally, thinking about her legacy. She should then, A, put the grandchildren and son as joint tenants, B, make the children tenants in common with their father, C, leave her son a life estate, naming the grandchildren of remainder interest, and D, create a tenancy by the entirety. Correct answer here is leave her son a life estate, naming the grandchildren of remainder interest. Now, this method would actually allow her son to own and use the property during his lifetime, but the interest would then go to the grandchildren later. Question number 5. Which of the following is true of the common area of a condo project? A, it is maintained individually by each condo owner. B, the area is owned by the government. C, the owners association usually has liability insurance coverage for the common area. And D, it is taxed separately from the units. Correct answer here is C, the owners association usually has liability insurance coverage for the common area. This question is actually going to be relevant in when you start working as well if you sell condos. So in my market, there are a ton of condos. They're usually a starter home for people. And you will see that the insurance policy is different. And the cost for insurance policies is typically lower on condos than single family homes because the condo complex has a master policy for these shared areas. Question number 6. After a buyer purchases a property, they have a survey made and find that their neighbor has built a fence 10 feet over onto the buyer's land. This is an example of A, appurtenance, B, easement, C, emblement, D, an encroachment. Correct answer here is D, encroachment. Once again, know those definitions. You're going to get some easy points on the exam if you do. Question number 7. Laws which regulate the types of activity that may be undertaken in different areas of a community are called A, rights of way, B, building codes, C, zoning ordinances, D, easements. Correct answer here is C, zoning ordinances. Zoning typically just sets the type of property usage in certain areas. You're probably familiar with this. You'll see residential zoning, commercial zoning, and industrial zoning in your own town. Question number 8. A term used to describe the physical attachment of a fixture to real property, thereby causing it to become a part of the real property is A, easement by prescription, B, adverse possession, C, doctrine of emblements, D, actual annexation. So the correct answer here is D, actual annexation. So once again, just know what these words mean. You get easy points on the exam. Question number 9. Which is not an example of common area in a condominium? A, swimming pool, B, laundromat, C, a balcony, D, land. Correct answer here is C, a balcony. And so why is balcony not considered a common area? When I was studying, I actually got this question wrong because I was thinking of a balcony that everyone could use. But in this question, they are actually saying the balcony is used only by one person. And because it's only used by one person, it's limited common area. So balcony would be the correct answer here. Question number 10. With regard to real estate, accretion refers to which of the following processes? A, gradual building up of the property. B, it's a method of evaluating property according to value. C, gradual wearing away of land. D, taxing property based on market value. Correct answer here is A, gradual building up of the property. So I would highly recommend you know what accretion, alluvium, erosion, riparian rights all mean. Know those definitions. You probably get a few questions related to those. Easy points. Now, if you want to make sure you pass the exam on the first try, I highly recommend you get a test set of questions. You know, these questions are going to be specific to California. If you're in a different state, I would highly recommend you get that state's exam prep. The question I get asked all the time via email is, where do I get my questions? And I'm going to share down below a link to Calibri. That's the platform I personally use to pass all three of my exams on the first try: real estate, mortgage, and most recently broker's license. I used all of their test prep. So full disclosure, the link down below is an affiliate link. So if you decide to get your test prep from them, I do get a small portion of the sale. And I thank you so much for supporting the channel and helping me create more videos like this. Now let's get back to studying here. Question number 11. A husband and wife acquire property during their marriage. That seems pretty normal. Okay. The property is titled in one spouse's name only. Oh, is that a red flag? At the time of a divorce, the court equally divides the property. What best describes the state of ownership during the marriage? A, constructive notice. B, commingling. C, community property. D, cooperative. So California is a community property state. Correct answer here is C, community property. The law requires property to be equally divided between spouses of divorce, even if titled to only one. This is the characteristic of community property. Question number 12. The city of Largeville wishes to obtain title to privately owned property to expand a highway. If the owner is unwilling to sell, the government can proceed by exercising its right of A, condemnation. B, easement. C, eminent domain. D, escheat. Correct answer is C, eminent domain. The government's right to the property is just called eminent domain. Now, the process for them to actually obtain the property is called condemnation. Question number 13. X obtains a deed from Y, which states that X is not allowed to put a fence around his front yard. This clause in the deed would be referred to as A, restriction. B, eminent domain. C, fee simple absolute. D, covenant of cession. Correct answer is A, it's a restriction. Question number 14. James worried that Peter would build a fence obstructing his ocean view. Peter offered for $500 to agree that no fence would be constructed. They signed and recorded the agreement. I feel like Peter probably should have been charging a little more. 500 seems a little low for obstructing ocean views. A, an easement. B, a lien. C, a restrictive covenant. D, an option contract. So just like the last question, we're going over, a restrictive covenant is just a promise to do or not do something, and that's going to run with the land and is recorded. Question number 15. A tenant farmer, on being told of the sale of the field they farm, may have to A, immediately vacate the property. B, plow under their crops. C, pay a higher rent. D, vacate the property after harvesting the crops. So the correct answer here is going to be D, vacate after harvesting the crops. There's something called the doctrine of emoluments. That means the tenant actually may re-enter to harvest their crops after their tenancy ends. Question number 16. Joe and Mary want to add a recreation room onto their home. Their one-story home and garage together cover 1,600 square feet of their 75 by 110 foot lot. That's a pretty good sized lot. Congrats, Joe and Mary. If the local zoning law limits building sizes to 25% of the land lot, what is the maximum square footage of floor area that Joe and Mary can add to their home? A, 400 square feet. B, 500 square feet. C, 463 square feet. D, 600 square feet. Correct answer here is C, 463 square feet. Don't worry, I'm going to walk you through the math. All right. I know that's what you guys want. So to do this, let's start with their lot size. 75 times 110. That's going to give you 8,200 square feet of a lot. Now, the city's saying you can build up to 25% on that. So that gives you 2,063 square feet of maximum building area. And so if their current footprint is 1,600 square feet, you just subtract that from the 2,063 max, and that leaves you with 463 square feet remaining to build on. Question number 17. Which of the following would be considered an example of police power exercised by a local government? A, tax liens. B, eminent domain. C, zoning ordinances. D, easement by necessity. Correct answer here is zoning ordinances. So zoning is a public regulation that is used to control land. Question number 18. Which of the following is considered a public restriction on land use? A deed covenant. B, a building code. C, an HOA rule. D, easement opportunent. Correct answer here is building code. Question number 19. Which of the following actions would create a variance in land use? A city rezoning an entire neighborhood. B, a property owner receiving permission to build closer to the lot line than normally allowed. C, a developer filing a subdivision map. D, a neighbor granting an easement. So the correct answer here is B. A variance just allows an exception to a zoning rule. So a property owner receiving permission to build closer to the lot line than normally allowed is an exception. Last question, question number 20. What is the purpose of a comprehensive or master plan in urban development? A, create deed restrictions for subdivisions. B, assign tax rates based on property types. C, to guide long-term land use planning and zoning decisions. D, to manage local utility services. Correct answer here is C, guide long-term land use planning and zoning decisions. So thank you so much for studying with me. I hope these 20 questions help you pass your exam on the first try. As a gift to you for studying with me, I got you a bonus question. Question number 21. I hope you get this one on your test. A property owner builds a shed that violates a setback requirement. The local zoning board later allows the shed to remain. What has likely been granted? A conditional use permit. B, a deed restriction. C, a non-conforming use. D, a zoning variance. Correct answer here, D, a zoning variance. And just a reminder, a zoning variance is just a legal exception to zoning rules. This person got kind of lucky that they let them keep that shed. Not all cities are this nice. All right, that was a lot of information. That was a lot of studying. Now might be a good time. Hit pause, get some water, use the bathroom, take a quick break, and get ready to finish up studying here. All right, let's dive into the last 10 questions. Okay, let's go with question number 1. A homeowner buys a small piece of property that has a small creek or stream running through it. What type of right describes the homeowner's use of the water? A, leasehold. B, alluvium. C, riparian. D, littoral. Correct answer is C, riparian. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but that's how I read it. And so whenever you see this, you just think the landowner's right to use water that is flowing through their property. Now, when it comes to leasehold, that describes a tenant's rights, and alluvium is related to soil deposits suspended in water as a result of erosion. Question number 2. A certain easement lies outside of and adjoins the land which it benefits. The land benefited would be the A, servient tenement. B, dominant tenement. C, easement holder. D, easement in gross. The correct answer here is B, dominant tenement. So the owner of the easement controls the use of the adjoining land and dominates its use. The property subject to the easement serves the easement holder. So that would be the servient tenement. So it's really important with these types of questions, you just understand the definitions. So if you understand the definitions, you're going to be able to quickly identify which ones are the wrong answers and which ones are the right answers. Question number 3. In order for a buyer to be certain that a property they are purchasing has no encroachments, they should obtain A, purchaser policy of title insurance. B, certificate of no defense. C, abstract of title. And D, a survey. And so before I give you the right answer, I want to say that this is actually relevant in the real world. A lot of the questions you get on the real estate exam are not relevant in the real world when you become an agent, but this one is actually somewhat important because people will buy properties, especially when it comes to development and building on land. And in their due diligence, they don't get the correct answer here and they have issues regarding the property lines, or like they buy a property and the neighbor's fence is actually on their property. But the correct answer here is going to be D, survey. In the real world, if you have investor clients that are planning to build on their property line, typically recommend they get a survey so they know exactly where their property lines are. And so, like I mentioned with the last question, it's really important to know these definitions. In this specific question, it has definitions that are going to be relevant to your real world work. A policy of title insurance has happened with every transaction that has financing, and an abstract of title gets pulled on everything, on every transaction as well. Here's a rare case of real world application of real estate exam questions. Question number 4. How many acres are there in Southwest 1/4, Northeast 1/4, Northwest 1/4 of Section 13, Blendon Township? For this one, you're going to have to do a little bit of math, and you're going to have to know what the question is even asking. So answer A is 5 acres, B 10 acres, C 20 acres, D 40 acres. The correct answer here is B 10 acres. So I'm going to break this down for you here. A section has 640 acres in it. And so a quarter of a section has 160 acres. A quarter of a quarter has 40 acres. And a quarter of a quarter of a quarter would be 10 acres. I recently passed my broker exam, and I actually had a few questions similar to this, asking about like meets and bounds and the different ways they break down land. So do spend a little bit of time on this and understand what the question is asking. Question number 5. Which of the following terms is most commonly used in California in reference to liens against real property? A, general. B, personal. C, voluntary. D, specific. Correct answer here is D, specific. So statutory liens for taxes and liens such as mortgages, deeds of trust, and mechanic liens are all specific liens. Obviously, this question is specific to California. So if you are studying in a different state, make sure to get the right set of questions for your state. I get asked all the time where I get these questions from or what I think is the best exam test prep. I personally use a company called Calibri. I use them for all 3 of my exams: real estate, loan officer, and most recently broker license. I have a link below and you can get your state specific exam prep. Full disclosure, it is an affiliate link, so I do make a little bit of money if you decide to purchase something using that link, but I wouldn't recommend it unless I actually used it myself. So if you decide to use it, thanks for supporting the channel, and I hope you do pass on your first try. Okay, let's get into the rest of these questions here. Number 6, the written instrument used to create land restrictions for the benefit of lot owners in a new subdivision is called a blanket deed of restrictions. B, covenant of use. C, declaration of restrictions. D, grant deed. Correct answer here is C, declaration of restrictions. This is just like a basic definition one. Like I said before, if you know a lot of these definitions, you're going to get some easy points on your exam. Question number 7. That which is immovable by law is also known as A, a trade fixture. B, personal property. C, real property. D, leasehold interest. Correct answer here is C, real property. You're probably going to see this one on your exam, so just make sure you know this one. Question number 8. A grantor conveyed a vacant 1-acre tract of land to a grantee. The grantee receives A, 5,280 square feet, B, 64,000 square feet, C, 43,560 square feet, D, 1,000 square feet. Correct answer is C, 43,560 square feet. And this is a funny one to me because you'll always see on real estate memes and social media, like this is something that you'll see on the exam. And I'm really glad that I know how many square feet are in an acre, but it is likely that you'll have at least one question related to something around acreage. So yeah, just go ahead and memorize that number, 4356, and you'll know that's what 1 acre is essentially. Question number 9. Fixtures and showcases attached in a store that occupies rented space are considered A, trade fixtures, B, personal property, C, tenant chatels, D, all of the above. Correct answer is D. All of the above. And the reason why is because trade fixtures are fixtures that can be removed at any time and are considered personal property or chattels of the tenant. Question number 10. Special restrictions to all properties within a subdivision would be found in the A. Subdivision plat. B. Corporate minutes. C. Mortgage agreement. D. Record of restrictions. I for sure got this one wrong when I was studying, but the correct answer here is D. Record of restrictions. The record of restrictions are found on the deeds to all properties within a subdivision and on the master plat record. And so you've stayed to the end. You're doing your best to pass the exam on the first try. And for that reason, I'm gifting you with a bonus question. Question number 11. How could a trespasser become the owner of real property? Hopefully they don't have any right to take someone else's property, but there is a term for it. So A, easement by prescription. B, affidavit of title. C, easement appurtenant. D, adverse possession. Okay, so this is just another definition one. If you understand what adverse possession means. Okay, so adverse possession is a situation where someone does not actually own the property or have title to a property, but they meet certain requirements, like maybe they lived in a home for a certain number of years, they paid all the bills, they pay all the property tax for a certain number of years, and then they end up going to court and taking title through adverse possession. Obviously, that's not an ideal situation, but it can happen. I hope you've really enjoyed studying with me. If you do have questions about the real estate exam, you can email me at darren@realdarrensci.com. If you got the energy to study and hit more test questions right now, there's a link down below to other videos with different subjects related to the real estate exam. And as always, thanks for watching my videos, and I'll see you on the next one.